Great day in the morning to you. Welcome to Uncle Benny's Creepy Campfire Stories, the Sludge Report Project. And I am your host, Uncle Benny. Welcome, brothers and sisters. Our stress pill this morning is going to be the Word of God and wisdom. As we get out of bed, we face the day and all the crap coming at us, all the lies, the misinformation, the spin, the propaganda, the mind control. What a hellstorm. What a hellstorm. Oh, you don't feel that way about it all the time? Let me tell you something. That's because we're desensitized. We've been being desensitized all our ever-loving lives. I don't know how old you are, brother, how old you are, sister. Or, you haven't obviously been on the same path I have. We are all lead a different path, but yet, if we're Americans anyway, we all have the same, by and large, cultural influences, especially if you grew up in going to the government re-education camps, grew up on television, whichever generation you're in. Anyway, fear not, for the Lord is with us, right? And I hope you like that bumper music. I think I've used it one other time. It's another musical piece I made a long time ago, and it found a little home here. How about that? Pretty cool. The language in it, that sullen, calming voice, take a stress pill and think things over. That's from the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, when the HAL 9000 computer was killing the astronauts, and Dave realized what was happening with the insane computer and began to shut him down and try to take the computer out. And Hal just wanted Dave to take a stress pill and think things over. Anyway, but our stress pill is not a pharmaceutical. It's spiritual. And that's our faith in God, who's in control, right? He's got it all in his hands. And we need to put on our armor of God, which is our faith, which is our salvation, which is the sword of the Spirit. And I've said it before, you come into the news arena, you are entering a vortex. And you and I, in our fleshly minds, I don't care how smart you are, I don't care what your IQ is or my IQ is, you're no match for it. There's witchcraft, there's spells, there's mind control, scientific mind control. It's been studied out, it's been practiced, it's been being perfected for ages. Not just since the last 10 years, not the last 50, not the last 100 millennia. This is a long-term satanic agenda that ever since the world began. Okay, so I want to do a little housekeeping about a couple of things. One, yesterday, if you sludged through what turned out to be a 3-hour and 21-minute video, astounding, really. And I stayed fairly strong throughout the whole thing, which is great news because that means I'm feeling better. However, and I'm still not 100%, and we'll see when that happens. It might be a little while yet, but I didn't watch the whole thing back. I do tend to find myself listening to them back, seeing how I can improve, seeing where I may be messed up. And a couple of things. One, I even pointed out that when I said balaclava, not to be confused with baklava, the Greek dessert, I went on to, I think, say baklava at one point, and I think I said balaclava, not balaclava. It's just one of those words that's kind of tricky. And when you're trying to do this video and think of where you're going to next, or where you were and what your main point is, if you tend to be like me, and I can kind of, and part of my exploration, as I'm talking things out, and you've experienced this too, it's why conversation can be very valuable, is that we the way we're designed for community and for fellowship, I believe that life enters into your words and your mind, and you begin to have creative thoughts and ideas that you would not have otherwise by yourself on your lonesome, right? And as I'm talking and, I'm kind of realizing things or developing ideas as I'm talking, I can all of a sudden lose my place. So anyway, it can be, right now it's, by the way, 6:32 a.m. Eastern time. Got started a little earlier. Even been to the gym already. That's good. Feeling better. Wasn't there very long. Ideally, I'd like to, early to bed, early to rise, I would say lends itself to making a man or woman healthy, wealthy, and wise. Doesn't guarantee it, but it's how I'd like to live. Redeem the time, and doctor rest. We need rest. And we need to rest in the Lord. There is no rest for the wicked. And the wicked want to make sure if they're not resting, you're not resting. You're not to rest. Keep you agitated, keep you tired, keep you worn out, keep you discouraged, demoralized. So, the next piece of housekeeping, there was a young man in the interview section, if you watch this again, there was a young man who was talking about one of his family was shot, and I made a point of saying, it wasn't his wife, child, mother, daughter. Okay, I'm sorry. It's early, right? Wife. It wasn't his immediate family. There you go. And it might have been an extended family. Why wouldn't he name the relationship? Or well, he did, and I missed it. He actually did say his cousin got shot in the leg. When I saw it on replay, I was like, oh, I must have missed that. I because sometimes when I'm playing a video or something, I take a moment to do a little, some of the computer housekeeping or whatever's going on as I'm making this video. For whatever reason, I missed it. Or maybe I was thinking hard on something or finding my place in my words, or who knows. So if you watch a video that I make and I misspeak or I say something, another thing, I kept saying copyright strike, and then I ultimately said copyright claim. I have not had a single copyright strike, but I've had a couple claims, and only one video early on was shut down worldwide. They wouldn't play it, and until I edited it and took stuff out. It took forever, but when I used their editor, and it took like an entire day. So then, of course, now it's gone downstream. I do hope these videos still have value, whether you watch them on the day of the news or not. I really do believe they do. I think they can be instructive or helpful. At any rate, I've only had claims, and basically, I'm trying to work out how to avoid that. Trying now to put in the links and always of the articles or things I use in case there's a video in here and I play it, and also put in just some verbiage about fair use. I don't know if there has to be specific verbiage. It's a learning process, learning curve. It's no fun because I can't be afraid of it. I'm going to have to play and do what if something happens, if a video goes down or you don't see it, you saw I was making one, maybe you watch part of it live, I don't know, and then all of a sudden you can't see it. Well, that's probably what's going on. Another thing to be aware of, it took a good 4 or 5 hours for that 3-hour and 21-minute video to reveal more than 41 minutes. So I've noticed a trend. Whenever I make a video that's longer than 41 minutes, or let's say an hour, let's say it's longer than an hour or about an hour, many times all that will appear for quite some time is about 40 to 42 minutes. And that's sort of like, I would liken it to when you go to the bank and you make a deposit with a check, and immediately $200 is available or so, $100, $200, $300, whatever your bank allows. But the rest has to clear. So it's sort of like that. You get 40 minutes if you have a really long video, while the rest is either being run through the algorithms looking for copyrighted material or being processed. I don't know. Whatever it is, I think it takes longer to process a video when I stream it live than it would be if I just recorded it and then uploaded it and then it was processed. But the fact is, I found the streaming, it puts a little pressure on me. It gives me a sense of having a live audience, which, it's I think I perform best under some kind of pressure with any area of my life. And I also am making a recording of my own. So if a video is ever struck down, I'm going to, sometimes I have uploaded it to other sites like MeWe, Gab, occasionally, not every time, and Facebook. I'm not a Twitterer. I'm not a Twitter user. There you go. And, well, it doesn't mean I don't have a Twitter account, but that's not my thing. In fact, I find it remarkable that that's so much communication with celebrities and with politicians goes on, and it's like it's important. It's like, I would never hear about that stuff unless somebody told me they tweeted this or tweeted that. I just never really liked the whole Twitter thing. It sounded kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I never liked the fact that they limited you to a certain amount of characters and stuff like that, but who knows? Things change. Maybe it'll be a format I use sometime. All right, so anyway, those are the two glaring things I can think of. Any other kind of misspeaking or mistakes I made, and I do ask your forgiveness for, I was exploring every one of those ideas and articles as we went through it. Again, this is about how I have come to this is my relationship with the news of the day. This is how I relate to it, because I believe when I was a younger person, a younger man, I really did get under this stuff. I mean, and it wasn't like this. The news has always been bad, the emotional manipulations and the lies, the spins. It's always been there, but there's been a ramping up, partly because they're in a war against people who are waking up to the truth of what's being done to them. Now, many are waking up like orphaned children, and they don't know where to turn. They don't have a foundation in the real truth, and that is the truth of the gospel, of the creation story, of the stream of time, the prophetic plan for salvation and for the redemption of the whole world, for the apocalyptic times which we're in, as in the revelation of Jesus Christ, not his real name, by the way. They don't have any foundation. They don't have any bearings. And there are many quote-unquote truthers or truth seekers or truth teachers even that really do have, it's like they see through a glass darkly, right? They do have truth to a degree. There are some that have a truth to a degree and who are absolutely shills, but there are those who have truth to a degree and are seekers themselves and are trying to shake awake other people, and good for them, but may they all come to the full knowledge of Christ, the veracity of his word, the living word of God, and also be walking by the Spirit and in the Spirit. And pray for me too that I am, right? When I make these videos, things I say, things I talk about, help me by saying a prayer for me, just a quick prayer that I remain circumspect and wise and sensitive to the leadings of the Holy Ghost. May I be his servant, and for your edification and enlightenment and my own. And again, the more, if you're going to be a swordsman, You need to get out there with that heavy metal and wield it and practice and swing and parry and thrust and defend and know how to handle it. That's what we're doing here today. Applying wisdom from the Word of God to the lies. It's a solvent, right? What do you do when you get grease on your clothing? Yesterday I likened getting out here in the news to you're sitting under a giant's behind as he squats over you and defecates on you every single day when you involve yourself in these stories of death, doom, confusion, uncertainty, destruction, hopelessness, poverty, corruption. When you expose yourself to this, is that how the world really, is that reality? Well, it's the reality of evil, but there is he overcame the world, and greater is he that is within you that is he that is in the world. And the news sites, the spin, the lies, the propaganda, that is the voice of he that is in the world. And why listen to it at all? Well, that's another monologue, I guess you'd say, but the point is that you're going to, aren't you? You're going to want to know the news. You're going to want to know what's going on. And whether you do or not, mostly the people around you are going to, and we need to be prepared to give an answer for our faith. And when we know how to frame some of the things that go on, and occasionally there'll be a jewel, like apples of gold and setting of silver. There'll be a jewel of a moment, of an article, of a thing, where one word fitly spoken from the Word about that situation will cut someone to the quick, free them, snap their chains, and you've just snatched a soul out of Satan's hands. All right? He who wins souls is wise. And I'd love to be a soul winner. But, wow, that's turned out to be a very difficult thing. Very difficult thing. Of course, that belongs to the Lord. But, we can all sow seeds and water. When we, if we are to, we plant seeds, we sow seeds, we water seeds that have been planted by others. It's Him who harvests and redeems. And if we happen to be in the way of that or used for that, wonderful, right? But it's not. Just be diligent about our work, and our work is to spread the good news. And that's what I'm doing here, is spreading the good news and as an overlay over the horrible bad news. All right, so maybe you don't like my long introduction here, but again, these are still early days. I've been doing this not quite 2 months, and not every day for 2 months, and it's developing. I'm developing a certain style maybe, and it'll continue to grow and change. And these are, I'm breaking up the fountains of the deep within me by doing this. Maybe you've noticed a bit of a change in some of the ways I speak and how it flows. I don't know. I hope so. I hope to get better at this. I feel my attitude's improving. I don't really have, again, I don't know how many of the views are actual views. I know when I received a copyright claim the other day, I immediately had 11 views. Immediately. I got the copyright claim almost instantly, and then, a little bit later I had like 11 views. Well, I know those weren't fans or subscribers. If there was any subscriber that one or two maybe at that hour, it was really most likely the whether it was they count views by the algorithm computer that scans it, maybe, probably, or there was an actual analyst that looked at parts of it. That's possible too. Who knows? Okay, I need to pause for a second. I need some musical interlude music, because sometimes I need to collect my thoughts. I've a little bit, I start this live, without a net, no script, other than, I do tend to pull out a few verses that come to mind as I'm putting this together and rather than rely on just memory from them, as they come to my mind, I look them up and have them ready, But let me start the first one. This is from Proverbs 30. And as you may or may not know, there are 31 chapters in Proverbs, one for every day of the month. Really kind of a beautiful arrangement. Yeah, some months have 30 days. Okay, so one day read 2 chapters. All right? But it would probably be better if it took you a whole month to get within your spirit and heart one verse. Just take one proverb and know it. Read commentary on it. Just know it. Have it memorized to where you'll never, ever forget it, and it will come to you. And when that proverb is quick into your mind, just like how you think of something, but the Holy Spirit is who brings remembrance of the word. And when that comes to your mind, you will see the power, how lightning fast it is, and how it just, boom, it's like turning on the lights. And we can have that, the more we have in our heart and mind of the word, of wisdom, of truths, of doctrine, all these things. And again, rightly divided and properly understood and applied. Oh, the power. There are those that are referred to in Scripture as being mighty in Scripture. Mighty. Do you ever feel mighty? I know once in a while I do, but not enough. Mostly I feel beaten down and kind of weak and kind of like, but I'm getting a joy back in my step. I'm really trying to regain my strength in many, many ways, many areas of life. I've just sort of had a, maybe you call it a come to Jesus moment, as it were. And I've just, I really want, things are maybe coming to fruition within me that have been seeds for years, that have been nurtured for years. And that's wonderful, You never know what a day will bring, right? So in Proverbs 30, verses 7 and 8, 2 things I've required of thee, meaning the Lord. This is his prayer. Deny them not before I die. Remove far from me vanity and lies, and give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me. That means food that's fitting for me, what I need and the time that I need it. So may that be our quest and prayer, and it is what we're doing here. Remove far from me. Don't just remove them from me. Don't just give me, knowledge that they're there. Remove them far from me. Vanity. What is vanity? Well, in Ecclesiastes, the preachers say, all is vanity, except to do your work and fear the Lord, right? But remember, the Drudge Report is started as a gossip column for Hollywood and DC gossip, and I always say, I posit, it arguably still is. We've seen it time and again. And brothers and sisters, how much vanity do you witness from your Hollywood stars of all calibers, all media types, movie, television, music, to Hollywood? To DC, from the president all the way down to whoever the least talking head is that's ever interviewed or on TV. Do you ever see vanity? Pride? What about lies? Oh yeah, lies, big time. So we're the heart of that who seeks wisdom in the Lord. Have you reached a point where you require it of God? You cry out to God, Lord, don't deny this to me before I die. I want to live my life free of vanity and free of lies. It's a heavy prayer. Believe me, we all have a degree of pride. I do. It means if God is going to remove all vanity from you, it's easy to think of as a vanity without us, meaning outside of us, around us. Can you pray, remove the vanity within yourself? Being humbled is very painful. And what about lies? Have you ever prayed to be in the truth, only the truth, even about yourself? Brothers and sisters, I have. God is faithful to a prayer like that. He's faithful. He says he's faithful. Anyone who asks of him wisdom, I believe this is in James, he's faithful to give him wisdom. And with no upbraiding him not, meaning like there's no conditional thing. Someone who cries out for wisdom from the Lord, God is happy to give it to you. Well, I believe that when you have the same prayer for truth, I found him faithful to be the same way. He answers that prayer. Now, it doesn't mean all of a sudden you have this psychedelic, mind-blowing, out-of-body experience and then you know everything and you know all the truth about everything. We couldn't handle the truth. Even the Master said to those closest to him, if I told you certain things, you wouldn't be able to handle it. And are we any different? No. Okay. Even things about yourself. But be open to it. Be ready for him to reveal things about yourself. You know, when you discover the corruptions within yourself, you know, sin is like leprosy. And we have to bring it to the Master and he can cleanse us from it. But like to find out the deceitfulness of your own heart, or find out under certain pressures or situations what might come out of your mouth or how you might react, you know, boy, we are changeable creatures, you know. All right, so let's get into it. Obviously, we've had what? I don't know. I'm already probably at a half an hour. And let's talk about this. So the big deal, not even headline news now, right now. Okay, when I say headline, I mean now they've turned back to the debates and all this jazz, right? Here's stuff about the actor-in-chief, President Trump. So we've got now the gunman story of the Garlic Festival has moved over here. All right, a couple of things. But before I get to that, which we will, because now we're into the spin phase and things are shaking out a little bit. A few more facts, a few more details, but we're just going to cruise through things, see what shakes out. I already kind of pulled up some stuff, and there's plenty of material here. I promise you that, well, I can't promise you anything. I shouldn't even talk about time limits. Just, we'll get through it. I'm not going to go back and break things down into like 45-minute videos or when they're super long or something. You're just going to have to, you know, suck it up and plow through it if you are interested. But if you are interested, I believe that you won't have a problem. I would never expect someone to have to sit there for 2.5 hours or an hour and a half even and watch or listen all the way through, because it's just a lot of your time, and your time is precious, and I recognize that, and I strive to make it, hopefully this is edifying and as productive to you as it is for me, or instructive or educational, whatever it is, right? So you see this picture here. I wasn't aware of this going on. Occasionally in South America in particular, there'll be like the prisoners will take over the prison. And there are a lot of prisons there where the prisoners basically run the prison. And it's kind of an odd thing. I can't get into more of that because it's been a while since I've really looked at that. But horror, okay? Here's the thing. At least 57 dead in Brazilian prison riot. 16 decapitated. Inmates play soccer with the heads. Deadly unrest in Latin America's jails. Well, this is not the first time, whether it's Mexico or South America, where there's been a prison riot and they off with their heads. They decapitate a bunch of people. Think about what it takes to do that. What kind of person decapitates their brother? You know, when I say their brother, of course, I'm not talking about the. I mean, they're of the same nation. You know, they're Latinos. Obviously, they have disagreements or problems with each other, just like within families. But the point is, it's like, you know, their fellow human being, is that they can decapitate, by and large, someone that's one of their peers, probably. So, 57 dead. 16 of them were decapitated. Who knows the horrors the other ones met and how they died. And then what about the injured? Who knows? But then you've got inmates playing soccer with heads, probably laughing about it. Well, what's my point? Okay. Last week, I made a video on Friday. I'm not sure that's when I talked about it, but I started to talk about the kind of people coming in the invasion. And, well, I generally talk, whenever I talk about the invasion, there's literal invasion, by the way. It's a takeover. There's raping and pillaging, and I mentioned that. And I mentioned this guy in North Carolina who's been tracking child molestation and stuff in North Carolina in like 30 counties, even though there's many more counties. These are the ones that he could get data on that were from, quote-unquote, undocumented migrants, unquote. Mind control word, by the way. Invaders, an invading army. But I point this out because there are all these, this is the kind of, in the mix of people, don't make me do your thinking for you, in the mix of people coming in are people with this kind of heart. Now, even in the United States, when we have a prison riot, occasionally a guard and one or two inmates may get killed, shanked, whatever. You don't have this. You don't have inmates playing soccer with the heads. Well, not yet, brothers and sisters. But America, the nation with the most prison, most incarcerated people in the entire world, and arguably probably the history of the world, many of these prisons are filling up with the criminals that are like this. They're not supposed to be here in the first place. They commit heinous crimes, and now they're in prison. What happens when these gangs continue to grow over to what's it going to be like in 5-10 years? How many people have invaded this country? Millions. 10-15 years ago, the figure was like 11 million. And that's been the number I've heard up until even the summer of last year when I was listening to there's a radio show. A guy talked a lot about borders of language and culture. He's gone to podcasts now. I don't really listen to him that much, but that figure was 11 million. But it's a lot higher than that. Now, somehow we can count 7.5 billion people on in all different nations, but we can't get a real head count of the number of people in this country who are not supposed to be here. And this was just in the news. Big arguments about the census. They don't want a census question about. They don't want to ask your what was that about? It escapes me now. They don't want to ask your if you're a citizen, I think. So let's just type that in real quick, just for clarity. Census question. That should be news. What was it about? I'm trying to think what that question was. The 2020 census question. Every house will be asked. Okay, asked about citizenship. So, judge orders Trump administration to remove 2020. This is this year. Okay, Trump's administration was going to add a citizenship question. It's a controversial question. Really? Why is that controversial? It's just bizarre to me. Is this person a citizen of the United States? Well, anyway, people are on their own recognizance to tell the truth on that, but there you go. So, can't ask now. Well, I don't remember how that's shaken out. There's just so much news. How can you keep track of it all? I don't live for this stuff, and neither should you. The world's on fire, and it's gonna keep burning. So here we go. Don't get bored yet. This is I said I would find it and refer to it. So this is, I'm going to go through this article with you. I think you're going to find it quite compelling. This is on the Epoch Times, which is supposed to be non-biased, and they host independent journalism. And July 18th, 2019, okay? In North Carolina, during the past 18 months, more than 331 illegal aliens, mind control word, people, even when they're opposed to it, they still keep using the language given to them. I'm someone who changed the language to fit reality when I see this stuff going on. And you should too. Instant in your mind, illegal aliens. Oh, believe me, I love the Genesis song, Illegal Alien. It's no fun to be an illegal alien, Great song. But illegal aliens, well, that might be pejorative enough for someone, but that's not the truth of the matter. They're invaders. It's an invasion. All right, let's move on. 331 invaders have been charged with 1,172 child rapes. Stop right there. Child rapes and child sexual assaults, according to data collected by an independent researcher, not afraid to name his name, James Johnson, who tracks the data on his website, ncfire.info, which stands for North Carolinians for Immigration Reform and Enforcement, says he's only able to gather data from 30 of the state's 100 counties. 30% of the North. Think about it in terms of percentages. 30%. Think about when your phone battery's at 30%. You probably start thinking about charging it up. It's low. It's a very small amount, small percentage of North Carolina. 30 of the state's 100 counties, 30% of North Carolina, which means it's likely the statewide count is significantly higher. You think? Okay. Now there could be ways to analyze that, the concentrations in different counties and things like that, but it's a pretty reasonable conclusion to say, averaging across 100 counties, if you've got a sampling of 30, that it's significantly higher. What were the numbers? 1,172 child rapes and child sexual assaults. This isn't your teenage girl who's 16, 17, 18, 20, or 19 or 20. Your other rapes of other women of older age. No, children. Okay. Johnson has tracked rapes and sexual assaults on children by invaders since 2013 using, now this is important, consider the source. Listen to what's going on here. Using original police reports and calling arresting agencies to verify immigration status. This guy does his homework. He dots his I's and crosses his T's before he cranks it in. His data doesn't cover every month, but for the 54 months he has recorded, maybe he has another full-time job. This is a side project, kind of like what this is for me. But for the 54 months he has recorded, an average of 34 invaders per month were charged with 151 counts of raping or sexually assaulting a child in North Carolina. That is 3 counts, roughly, per invader. Maybe it's 3 different children. Some of them. Think about this. Think it through. I don't want you to write your congressman. I wouldn't know what to tell you to say. First, you've got to get mad, said Howard Beale in the Movie Network. You've got to get mad. And you got to wake up. You're our El Presidente, Trumpo, over 30 months, ran on building a wall. The numbers have ramped up, higher numbers of people coming in than ever before, probably from more countries than ever before. Not just South America and Central America and Mexico, but Africa and the Middle East, coming up through. What's he really done? Not much. He's a liar. You've got to get mad. Okay? What are we going to do about it? I don't know, but arm yourself. You need to arm yourself. On one hand, women, you need to get yourself a little pistol in your purse. You need to train. You need to know how to use it. You also need to carry pepper spray. If you don't know what's happened in Europe to European women when these Middle Easterners have all the men, mostly young men, fighting age even, you might say, invaded their country, sexual assaults off the chain, rapes off the chain, and some of them end in death, a lot of them, and certainly beatings and abuse. All right. Further, a study shows that only 12% of child rapes are reported. So there you go. And women, this is true. A lot of women, and probably some, if it isn't even yourself, who are raped for whatever reason psychologically, they don't, or maybe it's because of who the perpetrator is, they don't report it. So even though these numbers are so staggering, remember, a lot of, I didn't know this figure. A study has shown that 12% of child rapes, only 12% are reported. So basically, around a tenth of the number. So that means, let's say we extrapolate this. Let's just for funsies, okay? So if 1,172 child rapes and sexual assaults during the past 18 months were perpetrated by 331 illegal aliens, invaders. See, I'm guilty of it too. It's hard to, keep it straight. Let's multiply this by about 10. 11,000, almost 12,000 child rapes and child sexual assaults may have happened, because really only about 12% on average are reported. And if there was only 10 or so percent reported, so let's say there's 11,720 child rapes and child sexual assaults that actually happened, does that mean that we can say there were 3,300 invaders that were involved? I don't know, maybe, in 30 counties. It's possible. All we know is that this is a very much, this is an iceberg number. That's what I'm calling it. Call it an iceberg. You're seeing the tip of it. Okay. You can have that for free. Use that in your own, apply that somewhere. It's an iceberg. You see an iceberg number. Okay. It's happening in every state. Okay. Maybe in listening to me drone on here, you weren't thinking about that. Is North Carolina special? It's happening in every state. We just happen to be compiling the information. It's a mess, Johnson told the Epoch Times. The ones that I cannot confirm as being invaders, I don't put in the reports. That's integrity. He isn't just trying to ramp up the numbers. He's making sure the numbers are solid. Good man. That's a good guy. So our reports are obviously on the low side every month, because we can't get around to every county, every arrest report, and we can't verify every one that we come across. I doubt this guy is drawing a salary doing this. It's a hobby, it's a passion, it's his form of service or being patriotic, whatever it is. My odds play would be he isn't being paid to do this. He said in the last 6 years he has only had to pull 3 reports off the site due to receiving incorrect information from the arresting agency. There are those who would take the 1 or 2 or 3 incidents where he made a mistake or there was incorrect information, and so somebody found out, aha, this is not true, and they zero in on that. That's the world we're living on. That's terra firma that we're living on, right? That's how it goes, how it rolls down here in the zoo. All right, the national issue. No federal database exists publicly. Operative word, publicly, for invader crime against children. Why not? Why the hell not? Wouldn't you want that? Where are those numbers? I wonder if you could file a FOIA report for something like this, but we don't know that it exists. So it's difficult to get a handle on the severity of the issue nationally. Well, there's plenty of other crime besides crime against children that probably is available. And, that's enough right there. Remember that gal was walking with her dad down in San Francisco, and this invader, he'd invaded several times. He'd been deported. He found a gun under a park bench, and he just wanted to, I don't know whether he said he was shot at a seagull or something. He shot and killed a beautiful young woman walking with her father. Horrible. How many crimes like that have to happen? That one right there is enough to say, well, we can't have people in here because of that reason. We got to know who they are, because this guy had a hell of a record. All right, but Texas is almost 3 times the population of North Carolina, and California has almost 4 times, according to census estimates. If the monthly rate of reported child sexual offenses committed by invaders in North Carolina is estimated to be 113 invaders charged with around 503 sexual crimes, so that's about 5 crimes per invader. That would put Texas at roughly 330 invaders charged with 1,500 child sex crimes per month, and California at 450 invaders charged with more than 2,000 crimes against children every month. So they're just, basically extrapolating the numbers, kind of like I did before. But, yeah, how about that? So the link is in the description if you want to read this for yourself, and I'm not going to go, this wasn't the point of this. I alluded to this the other day, and there you go. You've got to get mad. and that's why I'm sharing this. If that doesn't, if this isn't smelling salts to you, wakey wakey, odds are high if you're watching this that you are on the side of these people are law breaking, lawless. We can't have them coming in here like this, and because of these reasons, and are for massive a halting of this it's an exodus from other places, basically relocating of social problems in one place to create more social problems in this place. And by the way, it's not an organic, individually motivated situation. This has been stoked, cultivated, fertilized, watered, groomed, you name it. This is it's so easy to view history. Okay, let me take an aside here. There's what's called an accidental view of history, if you've never heard this before, and then there's the conspiratorial view of history. Well, there's that word again, conspiracy. Oh, it's such a bad word. So an accidental view of history means times have unfolded just sort of accidentally, just like the news every day. It's just like, oh, what happened next? What happened? All these, the world's just bumbling along and things happen and all these stuff, all things just happen almost like in a random way. No, they don't. And there's evidence for that things happen generally for a reason, and they were not unexpected, whether it was wars, let's just talk wars, things like that. Well, it's the same with this. And maybe I'm singing to the choir here. So preaching to the choir. All right, we're going to close that one. But I wanted to juxtapose that with what happens when when they riot in a prison, they break free. How many of these might be shopping next to you at Walmart, having played soccer with somebody's head, and you're walking in their footsteps, their shoes, maybe even the same shoes they were wearing there. Who knows? All I'm saying is that it's on one hand, people are the same wherever you go. On the other hand, they're not. Okay? So those are disparate thoughts. It may give you cognitive dissonance for me to say that people are the same everywhere, wherever you go. On the other hand, they're not. Well, you need to be able to hold those two disparate thoughts in your head because it's clearly true. And that's why we have borders and culture and language differences and things like that. All right? So next, I wanted to show you, now we're going to get to the shooting deal. One thing I noticed in the news yesterday, I didn't talk about it, maybe it didn't come up till later in the day. We had our little Chicago report of the shootings in Chicago. So let's go over to the archives, and we're going to look at the headline. Let's see. Okay. Just bear with me. I don't come here often enough to, this might be it. No, that's not it. It'll be worth our time. This is a good trip. Just hold on. Special, here we go. Drudge Report Archives is what I want right up here. No, it's not. All right, I'm having a little hang up here. Here we go. That's what I want. So yesterday was the 29th. And I don't know, let's just go about 1:30, 1:15. So this was yesterday. What I'm looking for is Chicago news. You're gonna be quite maybe this is 6:30. Okay, Monday. That was last night. Here we go. Let's get up to about 9 a.m. I think that's what this is. I'm sorry, I should have pulled this up initially. Yeah, Ben, you should have. Well, I have another way of looking it up here. They took it off. This is important, okay? They took it off. When I find it, it was like 9 dead and from shootings in Chicago. Here, why don't I do it this way? So go 9 dead weekend, Chicago, Drudge. See if we can find something on this. Well, here it is. So anyway, this was on the Drudge report. We need to pull the Drudge report up again. Gangland, Chicago gun violence spikes. 9 dead, 39 wounded in 1 week weekend. Now, what's significant about this? A couple things. One, the California Garlic Festival, 3 dead. Okay. 4 if you count the shooter. And 15 wounded. 9 dead, 39 wounded. This is in 1 weekend, and this is not unusual. This happens kind of on the regular, some number. And we don't hear about it. It doesn't make the headlines like, let's go back to the archive again. Am I being too tedious? I don't think so. This is all important. Okay. Recent headlines. Not even seeing it. It's going back to the 26th. It's not around. Didn't we just type in 9 dead? That was what I read on the Drudge report. I put in Chicago. Weekend. This was in the headline. I remember. I've got a good memory. June 3rd. It's been scrubbed. As best I can tell. Chicago dead. Let's just do that. October 30th. Nothing. Weekend. Killed. There it is. Boom. There we got it. So this was maybe the same article. Okay. So it doesn't look like it was scrubbed. I didn't put in exact Chicagoland, Chicago weekend killed. We got the 2, we zinged it. Okay, so we got it. So this was on the Drudge report, 15/26/11 General Mountain Time, or Greenwich Mean Time. Sorry. Let's go back to the timeline now. I want to show you how this was juxtaposed. July 29th, 1544. Okay, that's Eastern Standard Time. Here we go. We need Greenwich Mean Time. That's going to translate to about here it is. Mass shooting at Garlic Fest. 6-year-old, child dead. Gunman ID'd. Sorry. Gunman ID'd. We know now it was him that reportedly said, "I'm really angry." I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Drive-by shooting outside Miami synagogue. Chicagoland weekend. 9 killed, 39 wounded. So my point is look at the difference. What is being focused on? These mass shootings, right? What about this? Chicago is a gun-free city, by and large. Even if you're a law-abiding citizen, you're not supposed to have a gun. Even if you have a permit from some other area and you drive through there, if you got in trouble, if you got caught with it, you'd probably have a world of trouble to deal with. All right? But the criminals have guns. Well, are we just to forget about this because these are all gangbangers? 39 wounded? Lots of time innocents get killed. More often than not, one of the victims that's killed is not the intended victim. It's a child on the playground, or on the sidewalk or whatever, or in their bedroom bullet goes through the wall. Why aren't we hearing about this? Well, it doesn't fit the narrative, right? They're already gun-free over there, and it's really an embarrassment. This, now again, Drudge, one of the things talking about mind control and spin, this appeared and disappeared. It's gone, right? How do I know? Because, I know. I saw it happen. Secondly, if we look at when it came up, let's just look, an hour later, see if it's there. Still got the red letter version of the news headlines. It's gone. Take that down. Who sent the order other than Matt Drudge? Who sent it to him, or why did Matt Drudge decide, let's take that out of there? That was only news for an hour? 9 dead. Come on, I thought Black Lives Matter. Well, how do you know they're black, Uncle Benny? Well, first of all, they titled it Gangland at Chicago. I'm an odds player. Pretty sure. You kind of get the we're created to have a pattern-oriented mind. That's how human beings are. So how can you fault someone for that? I've seen a pattern. I don't know whether they were all black or not, or maybe Latinos. Who knows? Or white. Maybe they're all white. Wouldn't make a dime's bit of difference, really. But it does tend to be these, thugs, lawless, and gang members, and tends to a lot of times be black on black crime in Chicago with gun violence. And there you go. You can do whatever you want with it. So there you go. I just want to point out the juxtaposition, the mind control, because this is what even the conservative news aggregate wants you to focus on. So if you think that the conservative or the Republican side, if they're not for gun control, it's called the Hegelian dialectic. It's two wings of the same bird. It's a totalitarian two-step. It's, they're working as well in a different way to bring you to the point of subjugation, surrender, compromise. Here you go. 9 killed, 39 wounded. Let's see. We're not going to probably see a list of. So Altgeld Gardens neighborhood. What kind of place is that? Probably a wiki on it. Okay. I'll call Altgeld Gardens neighborhood profile. Well, it even has a Chicago gang history deal. Let's see here. Neighborhood profile. May not be able to get much for it. Okay. 6 alerts on crimes. Median real estate price is $62,000. Well, that's not very much in Chicago terms, which is less expensive than 92.6% of Illinois neighborhoods. So there you go. It's what you would consider a poor neighborhood, and it's less expensive than 94% of all the rest of the U.S. So this is a poverty area. Rental price is $1,200. Well, that seems high. Let's see. Primarily made up of small studio townhomes and apartment complexes. Most of the people in there are renters. Vacant apartments are a major fact of life in Altgeld Gardens. Well, there you go. That opens up a lot for people squatting, for drug dens, you name it. All right. Whether by choice, divorce, unplanned pregnancy, single moms may have the toughest job in the book. Neighborhood Scouts' exclusive analysis reveals that Altgeld Gardens neighborhood has more single mother households than 99% of the neighborhoods in the United States. There you go. Okay. So what's this leading up to? Diversity. Altgeld Gardens neighborhood has more African and sub-Saharan African ancestry people living in it than nearly in it. Did you know that Altgeld Gardens has more basically black people living in it than nearly any neighborhood in America? It's true. There you go. So like I said, I'm an odds player. Okay, let's go back to this article, see if we can get any victims' pictures or names. Probably not yet. They just have ages and maybe ages and gender. Yeah, no. Okay. We don't know their names. You know, that can sometimes be a tip-off as to someone's, whether they're black or white or Hispanic. Well, okay, that's enough. You know, I don't need to. I guess the only reason I went into that is because I said off the cuff that, you know, Black Lives Matter, and don't they? And they didn't. And then it's like making the assumption that the gun violence was black on black. And I think you can see that was a pretty fair, odd statement. I don't really need to defend. I don't need to do your thinking for you. I shouldn't even feel like that. I guess, you know, nobody likes to be accused of being biased that way or racist. So anyway, so let's go on to the you know, I titled this video "Bad Garlic Breath" because things are starting to smell. So this is yesterday morning on ABC News, and George Stephanopoulos, George Stephanopoulos interviews a couple quote unquote survivors. We won't go through the whole interview, but I do want to just randomly pluck out part of the one of the things I do. This volume's very high. One of the things I do often in these shootings is I watch the witness interviews. Who are they? What's their demeanor? Are the various witnesses repeating some of the same phrases like it was a script? Do they giggle? Do they seem to be literally reading lines off a card? Are they showing genuine emotion, or does it have a smack of, does it seem to be contrived? Do they shed tears? For example, if you see the father of a victim within just a couple hours of learning that their child has been killed, and they're sniffling and acting like they're crying, but you don't see an actual tear, that's not normal. And you know what, brothers and sisters? It's okay to say that's not normal. Well, people grieve in different ways. You can't judge. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I don't know for sure. But when you put them all together, you got to carry all these data points forward and then arrange them and then start to see, are we getting a mosaic? It only comes through as a mosaic, you know? And when all these little pieces start to add up, the odds increase exponentially of what your heart's telling you, what your mind and heart are telling you, and your spirit's telling you, the spirit's telling you, all of the above. So first of all, we see, and we're pretty well into this interview. You can see it started way back here. If you see me scrolling and scrubbing along, it started way back here. This is a 6-minute clip, and the interview started fairly quickly with George talking to them and walking through what happened, their relationship to the victims, and, you know, he kind of recreates trying to get into the drama. What would it be like? You know, it's almost like a fascination. What was it like to be there, you know? Well, these women, no tears, just a very stoic face. She looks nonplussed and kind of, you know, yeah, whatever. When I first saw them, I thought they were lesbians, a couple. Well, they're grandmothers, so I guess that doesn't mean they aren't lesbians now, and maybe they've, you know, had a change of life, a change of heart. I don't know, but just that's what I thought. And maybe that's, I don't know if there's truth in that or not. You know, that was just my first take on that. But let's assume that they're not. They're grandmas, you know. Let's just go with this. And let's see how they sound for a second.
Just 1 minute he was there, and then the next, he was just, I don't know.
It just seemed like, yeah, he didn't run or anything. He just kind of walked fast over towards the shooting. And then we went behind the porta potties and we didn't see him anymore.
And then the next thing I saw, that the police had already shot and killed him. That's the next time I saw him. He was on the ground, shot and killed.
Thank goodness the police got there so quickly.
They did.
Yeah, thank goodness. Thank goodness that they got there in 1 minute after, you know, 1 minute. Yesterday in the video, if you didn't see it, I counted 1,000 just up to about 30 seconds. It's a long frickin' time. They went out of their way to say tight security. heavy security. There was a lot of police, firemen, and medical personnel. Now, I wondered why it was so tight, or why they had so much security and metal detectors. I looked up and read a little bit about the Garlic Festival, and it's been going on a long time. But it does say that it now draws more than hundreds of thousands of paying visitors a year. More than hundreds. It's not well written. More than 100,000. It draws hundreds of thousands. I don't know. Either way, that's a lot of people. Okay, that's the upshot. So let's look at that for. Okay, that was back from this article in '98. So yeah, it's a going concern. Now that even also would, the video that we saw yesterday, or video that you've seen of the festival, draws hundreds of thousands of people. Let me tell you, that looked like a small little county fair size deal, and there weren't a lot of people relative to hundreds of thousands of people. Maybe over time, I don't really know, but let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that every Garlic Festival weekend, there's 100,000 people that come through there. Okay, so with 100,000 people, yeah, you might want to have some lawmen there to enforce policies and law to keep the peace, keep the order. But once again, what a horrible job to have all this upfront heavy security in the front, but nothing in the back. It's the classic deal. It's like the turtle that's got the soft underbelly and the hard shell. Well, you got to flip them over and go for the underbelly. And why wouldn't they again station at least along the fence line 1 or 2 officers? Now, speaking of the fence, yesterday it was wire cutters. They cut the fence and came through. Today in an article, and there's another thing, by the way, that I look for, is discrepancies, changing stories. Now the witness says she saw him jump the fence. He came over the fence. Why is there a change? I don't know yet, but that's curious to me. When you have changing stories of eyewitness accounts with stuff that that, yes, there's a whole thing about witnesses are unreliable and this and that. Let me tell you something. If you saw a guy if you're at a festival that the way it's turned out and people were murdered all around you and shot at all around you, close enough to see the guy, you're close enough to hear the gunshots, and you saw a guy with a gun, a rifle, and camouflage coming over the fence, that seared in your mind. You didn't make a mistake and saw him cutting through the fence and then said he climbed over the fence, or vice versa. Think about it, brothers and sisters. Think about it. That's one of those things that nobody's going to make a mistake about that. That is a really screwed up mental system that would make that get those wires crossed. Oh yeah, he cut through the fence. I'm sorry. He actually jumped over the fence. Saw him climb over with a rifle and camo, and next thing you know, he's firing. You're not going to forget whether he climbed over the fence or came through a hole in the fence. You're not going to forget it. Gosh, it's crazy. So back to the eyewitness thing. Let's listen for a bit.
Well, there was a lot of
there.
police, a lot of security there. I mean, you feel secure in it. I mean, they're on horseback, they're on motorcycles, they're on bikes, they're all over the place during the festival. Yeah. So there's no. Okay,
I'm glad I literally randomly just selected a spot, and I'm glad that it landed there, because I did hear that yesterday, and it goes to one of my you got to look at sort of what would be the agenda here of some of this stuff. Well, her narrative is she has, this is where it starts to wonder, is this a script? Because this fits perfectly into a narrative and a kind of a psyop here, where she starts waxing philosophical in a way. You feel like this couldn't happen to you, that there's police on horseback, police on bicycle, police on, everywhere, police. And what's the message? Even the police have guns, and they are trained with guns, and they're all around us, and they're supposed to protect us from this, and even they can't stop these gunmen, crazy gunmen. And watch for this lead up. This is a lead up. I'm going to get to the end and play just a couple minutes of Mr. Stephanopoulos' little editorial comment. And as I said in a previous Sludge report, you might remember that that one of the notable things and one of the stories we were watching on a news clip was that they made no editorial comment, and they certainly can, and they certainly do, and you'll see how they do it. With I said before in that video, I should make note of these dates. I don't remember what date it was, but it was in the last week, that they make one or two word, even if it's a 1 or 2 word editorial comment, they're not exempt from that. But in this particular video that we were watching, I can't remember the topic now, but it was very significant that they did not say anything. So let's go on.
Reason to think that we were not safe there. And then this happens. You know what I'm saying? It can happen anywhere. You never think it's going to happen in your town, but look what happens.
Okay. See, this is a very common well, I'm going to just have to say script. This is language. This is very common verbiage. There we go. This is very common verbiage after these. You know it's true. You know it. If you ever watch and pay any attention to this stuff or watch victim interviews, they always say the same things, and she's saying it now. You never think it can happen to you. Small town, this and that. You know, it's a neon sign. You're not safe. Be afraid. Guns are bad. You know, the police couldn't help us. The police are not enough, and they were everywhere. They were basically on the walls, on the floors, and on the ceiling. You know, listen to what she said. Let's hear it now that I know that's what this is about. Let's hear what she says.
It felt...
Hold on.
It seemed like, he didn't run or anything. He just kind of walked fast over towards the shooting. And then we went behind the porta potties and we didn't see him anymore.
And then the next thing I saw, that the police had already shot and killed him. That's the next time I saw him. He was on the ground, shot and killed.
Thank goodness the police got there so quickly.
Here we go.
They did. Well, there was a lot of
there.
police, a lot of security there. I mean, you feel secure in it. I mean, they're on horseback, they're on motorcycles, they're on bikes,
horseback,
they're all
bicycles.
over the place during the festival.
All
so
over the place.
there's no reason to think that we were not safe there.
No reason to think you weren't safe there, other than you weren't armed yourselves. I mean, you saw the guy. Maybe you could have sniped him out from behind the porta potty if you just had a freaking pistol, lady. Had a few little training.
And then this happens. You know what I'm saying? It could happen anywhere. You never think...
I think we know what she's saying. I mean, pay attention. She just did a tell right there. You know what she's saying? You know what I'm saying? That's a cue to the viewer, to the listener, passive listener on television. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we're picking up what you're laying down, lady. Now that we're looking at it in the light of maybe you are reading a script.
I think it's going to happen in your town, but look what happens.
Could you believe it was happening?
I felt
in the
totally
moment?
safe there with them.
No, it was, still can't believe it really. It still hasn't processed really.
I can't process the whole thing yet. It's just...
Okay, when you say you can't process the whole thing, you know, you got to remember these frequent shootings like this. Again, I'm now leaning towards this really smells bad. Okay, obviously, I think you're starting to see that I'm not buying this. Now, does that mean no one died? No. Right now, probably the highest odds thing is this actually happened, and that shooter was just kind of a Manchurian candidate, and you know, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. But I don't believe he was just an angry young man, organic white supremacist who just, you know, did this. Okay, so this is a tell right here that, and they're perfecting these things because, you know, first of all, look how they've changed the YouTube. You can't find videos that analyze stuff like this like you could before. I mean, very quickly, it's just a clamp down. It's like a real clamp down. Just boom, we've got to stop this, you know, and that's what that's coming from. And now, because there's so many holes, they have the worst actors. You know, I haven't been crying crisis actors. I don't know that these are for sure, but it's stinking. It's smelling because of the perfectly lockstep verbiage they're using. And now what we found with the poor crisis actors, they're finding ways like, here's a plausible deniability. I can't process it. I can't hardly believe it. So any psychologist might say, well, they're clearly in shock, so that would explain people grieve in different ways and why they're not crying. So that exempts them from having to show any real emotions or real tears or be anything more than having a flat affect, which is kind of really all they have. They have a flat affect. If you don't know what affect is, it basically is demeanor, expression. It's very flat. But they just both chimed in and said, I can't process it. I haven't processed it yet.
It's too new right now.
Well, I can only imagine.
Now, they're body language experts. I don't know if anybody's going to get away with the video not being taken down who were to analyze their body language. But she just did something with her eyes I didn't like. I'm not a body language expert, probably any more than you. Maybe I'm a little better because I've thought about it than most. There are books you can read and study, and I have been trained in picking up people who are lying, but I have not really watched with that eye yet. And I'm not a body language expert like some of the ones on video on YouTube. But I will notice this.
Can't believe it really. It still hasn't processed really.
Oh, I can't process the whole thing yet.
Notice how they stop looking either at an image of him or into the camera when they say that. I find it a bit like they're not confident in what they're saying. This to me might indicate deception. Okay.
Still can't believe it really. It still hasn't processed really.
Oh, I can't process the whole thing yet. It's too new right now.
Watch her look down.
Well, I can only imagine.
I want to say
We could watch it in slow motion. I think you might see it. Let me just slow it down just briefly. Slow it down to 75%. You know, wow, Uncle Benny, you're getting really hyper-focused on this stuff. It's just jumping out at me. Like I said, I'm going through. This is what I would see. Now, would I take all the time to do all this? No, I might wait for a body language expert person to maybe analyze this and remember this interview and say, oh, yeah, I noticed that too, but I didn't really think about it. But we can do it right here. Let's just do it. Watch their eyes.
In your town, but look what happens.
Could you believe it was happening?
I felt
in the
totally
moment?
safe there with them.
no, it was. Still can't believe it really. It still hasn't processed really.
Well, I can't process the whole thing yet. It's too new right now.
Well, I can only imagine.
I want to say we're sorry for the little boy that lost his life.
Yeah.
Say to his family, we're really sorry.
Okay, we'll
feel
speed it
for
back up.
them.
Yeah.
It is such a tragedy. Just 6 years old.
Yeah, I saw the mother carrying him.
So
I mean,
little,
it was
so
just it's just devastating. Everything that happened is devastating.
But everybody came together and tried to help everybody out in that area that we were at.
Yeah,
And
they were helping. They were hiding people, putting things over us so no one would get shot. I mean, no one, because at the time you don't even know where he's at after we walked around the porta potties. I had no idea where he was at. You know what I'm saying? I had no idea. We were just trying to save ourselves and find my granddaughter and the little boy. I had no idea what was going on.
It is just heartbreaking. Thank goodness you came together and so many lives were able to be saved as well. And thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Okay, here we go. So this is the part where it gets, this is the finale, and we're going to listen to what. Remember how many people watch this. They rely and they look at these news anchors as good, moral, authoritarian. People do regard newscasters with such, almost like doctors, lawyers,
You saw those families in the video. This is a family festival. This is where my grandparents would take us on the weekends in the summer, and to hear them say that you never think it would happen in your own community, this certainly hits close to home. But how?
I don't know. Did she really grow up there and go there as a little girl? I don't know. But this brings it home to where, oh, how dare, we couldn't question her. She actually, this is really close to her heart because she was from there. Maybe she is. Right? Watch.
How many times are we going to have this conversation?
Well, there's an answer to it. And this is just, take this in right here, the Gun Violence Archive.
Okay. What did he just say? She goes, how many times are we going to? Was this an organic question or was this scripted for the end? You decide.
Take this in right.
You decide. Let's listen to that one more time.
Certainly hits close to home, but how many times are we going to have this conversation?
Well, there's an answer to it, and this is just.
Nobody dissents ever, right? Too many. Just consternation. Just too many. What does George say? There's an answer to it. There's a solution. George Stephanopoulos has the solution. He just told us there is a solution. Then he cites these statistics.
Take this in right here. The Gun Violence Archive said there have been at least 246.
Take this in. A little bit of neuro-linguistic programming, maybe.
Mass shootings so far this year. This is the 210th day.
Awful.
Of 2019. So more than one every single day.
Okay, so this is disingenuous because what defines a mass shooting? Really, in the United States, there's been 200 mass shootings, almost a mass shooting every day. I don't think so. That's not even honest. He's not an honest man, right? Lord, I require of you, deny them not before I die. Remove far from me vanities and lies. Vain and lying persons, remove far from me. Okay? Lord, please.
Of this year.
You can't even respond to numbers like that. It's just...
Thought-stopping statements, doing your thinking for you. You can't even respond to numbers like that, she said. You know, one thing I noticed when she looked down and like she was reading that, she looked down before she said, how many times are we going to cover this story or hear this? What does she say again? Right before George.
Them say that you never think it would happen in your own community. This certainly hits close to home. But how?
See, she's looking down. How, you know, she's reading. Did this just come off the top of her mind?
How many times are we going to have this conversation?
Well,
that ha 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 in her H, you know, how many times are we going to have this conversation? Shakes her head, frowns. She tried to make it appear like that was an original thought. That was her line. That was a line. Make no mistake about it. Just like at the very end.
To numbers like that, it's just horrific.
You can't respond to numbers like that. It's just horrific. And him over here. Okay, so maybe you feel I'm being a bit too tedious and semantical about that, but remember, what are we trying to do? Discern the truth here, cut through the lies, the spin, the propaganda, and this is a big deal. It's a big deal. It's another one, and it's starting to stink, and you can already see how they're, how they're spinning it, whether or not it really happened or anyone really died. But why would you have witnesses that, just listening to those two ladies now the second time and watching it, can you do better than that? They had flat affect. They had trouble keeping, you know what it's like. Shifty eyes. They had shifty eyes. There you go. Now the other thing I noticed, they weren't so close to a victim, whether a wounded person or a murdered person, that you would expect that they would have tears. They're getting better at doing this and deflecting a lot of the doubt that they've created themselves when they have just horrible actors. Because in some of these shootings, yes, they are horrible actors. It's laughable. But they know they can't get away with that anymore. Who's they? The powers that shouldn't be. They need to be a little more careful. So they're adjusting their game. All right, here's some more fallout from yesterday, right on cue. Maureen Callahan of the New York Post wrote an opinion piece. Angry young men continue to be America's greatest threat. Well, that's a thought-stopping statement. It's declarative. Is it? So last night at 10:15 p.m., this was updated or came out, and she wrote this piece. I don't know how popular she is or how many people read it, but less than 24 hours of yet another. Just listen to her language. Yet another mass shooting in America. The youngest fatalities of a 6-year-old boy and 13-year-old girl. By the way, I want to talk about the victims for a minute. I find it a curiosity that the victims in this were 2 Hispanic children and a black man. And I want to talk a little bit more about the some details about the black guy in a second. And then, of course, the shooter is a 19-year-old white male who his only Instagram tweets or Instagram, whatever you call them, Instagram posts or whatever, had to do with referencing white supremacists. But how convenient. Boy, doesn't this fit a great narrative? Okay. Why are you doing this? A witness heard someone shout. Like, that's a fact. Do we know this? Somebody wanted to have a dialogue with him, conversation with him, and he actually answered him while he's, because I'm really angry. You know, this just does not pass the smell test. It's absurd. Yesterday I said the same thing. This is absurd. This is absurd theater. Think about it. The last thing I would yell out to a guy who's pointing a M4 at me or an AK-47 is, why are you doing this? Because I'm really angry, he says, Clint Eastwood style. I mean, just think about it. It's not, it doesn't make, I'm just going to go so far on a limb. If I had to put money on it, that never happened. I think I'd put a substantial sum on the fact that that never happened. Who was the witness? Where's their name? That's another thing to always watch out for when they just anonymous and witness. So they can, this is invented. This was a script. You know, my odds are hot. Again, I don't know. Did anybody die? Was there a real shooting? I don't know. Were there real bullets and real victims? I don't know yet. But I'll tell you this. I'm well into the 90th percentile of that this is a staged event. If you watched my entire video yesterday, if you're listening to me now, is kind of how you think through this. It's like there's really, if you're an odds player and you've seen this animal before, it's starting to, you know, walk like a duck, quack like a duck. Maybe it's a duck. Yeah? All right. Now check this out. For those mass shooters who have attacked the innocent before, we know it's a specific strain of anger. Deep, repressed, now this is important, biblically vengeful. Now what does that mean? You know? Well, there's antecedents in Christianity, in Christians, in the Bible, people who believe the Bible. Of course, there's the angry God who wiped out, you know, had the Israelites wipe out people, biblically vengeful. You know, this is a woman with a darkened mind and under control of spirits, biblically vengeful. Well, you know, we are stream of consciousness type of beings, and this is mind control. Okay, this is a, you know, I may be improperly using this. I need to kind of review it again, but it's just programming. It's programming. Deep, repressed, biblically vengeful, felt most commonly by young men. Here you go. Almost always white. So we can go back and in her mind, she's writing this. Angry white young men continue to be America's greatest threat. That's what she's saying. Make no mistake. Less than 24 hours of yet another mass shooting in America. It seems the 19-year-old white shooter gave us one, like a motive. Why are you doing this? Because I'm really angry. All right. Specific strain of white anger. White Christian anger. All right. Almost always white, who report feeling alienated, dispossessed, misunderstood, victimized, and all too often rejected by women. This is a little bit of a slam against white young men. You know, they're weak, victims. Well, they're portrayed that way constantly, aren't they? But are they? No. Their chosen outlet is the mass slaughter of innocents. Carnage at places the rest of us once deemed safe. Now, what has happened right here? We've transitioned to white, angry young men are monsters. Their chosen outlet is a mass slaughter of innocents. Schools, hospitals, place of work and worship, concerts, carnivals, all meant to hold us hostage in fear of the next reprisal we're not responsible for and we won't see coming. And the police won't, she might have well added, and the police can't help you either, even if they're heavily armed, trained against active shooters. You know, it might be a full minute of gunfire on your person before they ever, you know, if they take them out that quickly. Little is known yet about this shooter's history, and I refrain from using his name. How noble of you. because that's what shooters seek is infamy. Well, we don't have any indication this guy wanted infamy. So far, he fits the profile of those who've come before. The range-induced, don't forget white young men. Now, I'm going to go through these, and there's a couple where there are shooters who, one was Hispanic and one was black. But there's so many, it's almost like token. You know, that's a way to avoid being, you know, reverse racism is what it's called. Avoid her being, that's her ticket out of being, you know, slapped with any objections for being reverse racist. She had to do it. And that's, okay, rage-induced young men we first encountered through Columbine, 2 white young men. Sandy Hook, 1 white young man. Aurora, 1 lone wolf white young guy. Charleston, a lone wolf, that's the church one, a lone wolf white young guy. Virginia Beach, that was a I think Hispanic guy. The STEM school shooting in Colorado, white young guy. Charlotte, okay, which one? Charleston or Charlotte? What was Charlotte, I think was, okay, I don't know. Poway synagogue shooting, white guy. The Louisiana shooting in 2 parishes. Sebring shootings. Thousand Oaks, white guy. Mercy Hospital, I think was, I don't know, Tallahassee Yoga Studio. This was not even really, this guy was, well, he's a white guy. I'll keep my focus. I didn't even look up the rest of these. Stoneman Douglas, white guy. No, wait a minute. Didn't he have a Hispanic background? Either way, make no mistake, okay? A lot of these are white guys. I'm sorry, now I've forgotten. I did look up, I started looking up, then I realized I can't spend another 10 minutes doing this. Virginia Beach shooting was, let me just look. Virginia Beach shooting. I already looked it up. Who was this guy? Perpetrator. Dwayne Craddock. Let's get a look at him. I must have missed this one. Okay, black guy. Maybe that was the one. Yeah, black guy. STEM school shooting, Charlotte. Let's see what the Charlotte. Got my caps locks on. Is this it? Oh, here we go. I don't even know if I, yeah, 2019. I don't think I was even aware of this. Tristan Anderson, Andrew Tyrell. Let's see. It could be a little Latino, but the last name wouldn't indicate it. Okay, so white guy. He did look pretty angry, didn't he? Anyway, here's the opinion piece, and these people come out in force after things like this. The ever-incubating mass shooter, these young men nurturing their anger through first-person shooter games, violent pornography, through racism, and fascination with guns and violence is our greatest, most stubborn and pressing threat. More so, I would argue, than Islamic terrorism or Russian hacking or immigration or trade wars. So here's your misdirection. Okay? We got to stop the angry young white man, and we got to keep guns from him. And by extension, that means guns from everyone. And they're racist, they're gun obsessed, they're violent, they're into violent pornography. I don't know. Every individual here is different. The only one racism that I could see would be the one that just happened was going to be tagged with racism, and then the one in Charleston, the church shooting. As for the others, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, the article's on the description. You can read more about it. Hopefully you're starting to see that you got to read this and with a little bit of disdain, because this is, it's just spin. propaganda and mind control. And what are they riffing off of? The Garlic Festival shooting. So there's one angle. Let's say it all happened the way they said it did. The guy who's Iranian and Italian descent, he's not like really your classical white guy, but he isn't Hispanic and he isn't black. And he shoots Latino children and what appears to be a black guy. And he also had Instagram tweets about, reading white supremacist book. And then he made a remark about paving the way for mestizos. Looks like he had resentment and anger towards Latinos. Okay. So let's say that's all true. Okay. Let's say that's all the truth. It happened the way they said. People really died. And okay, brain cloud. Where was I going with this? I don't know. Anyway, this stuff makes your mind go to jelly after a while. So at any rate, I lost my point with that. Let's say it's all true, and he was an angry young white man and racist. Does it sound really plausible? Does it sound like there are all these angry young racist white men out there with super powerful guns gonna just blow up one moment and just gun down people of different colors? It's just absurd. What are the odds of that? Or is it more likely that since we have all the scripts that fit a certain narrative and political agenda, that the people that take counsel together against the Lord and his anointed, God gives us the right to defend ourselves. God gives us the right to own and defend our private property. God gives us the right to be free. And we're not free at the point of a gun. And does it fit? Does it make more sense that the powers that shouldn't be, who take counsel against the Lord and his anointed and have endless supply of wealth and are well heeled and well entrenched in all levels of government, from your city council, school board, all the way up to the White House, that have the power and means to do abominable works, that they could cause like this kind of thing to happen to advance the satanic agenda of global domination and the eradication of God's remnant, God's seed in the world. You and me. I'm an odds player. I think the odds are I'm right. Now, to the chief musician, a Psalm of David from Psalm 14. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that does good. The Lord looks down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there were any that did understand and seek God. They are all gone aside. They are altogether become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Well, we are all sinners. We are all in need of salvation through Christ, right? But there are those who've done abominable works. Well, arguably any sin is an abominable thing, and corrupt thing, but they have advanced themselves to be God. They want to be God over you. And in doing so, they say there is no God in heaven, that your God does not have power to save you, that your God does not have a plan for your life, that you are going to walk out in power and freedom. They are going to dictate what your life is going to be like. And the only way they can do that is if you're disarmed. Never forget it. Okay. All right. Once again, too long a video. Let's see. Motive a mystery as California. Now, what does that do? When they say motive is a mystery, automatically we want to solve the mystery, right? We want to know what's the motive. Well, this opens it up to people speculating in comments, speculating around the water cooler, thinking in their own mind, well, why did he do it? Well, they're going to give you the material to basically be a mystery solver. You can be one of the Hardy Boys here. You can be Nancy Drew, lady. Okay, you can solve the mystery because you're going to put it together. Well, he was a white supremacist. That's why he was racially motivated. Okay. Here's more about the cut through the fence. It's going to come back in a minute. Police were searching on Monday for suspected accomplice. So they're still searching as of yesterday, as we know. Gunman was shot dead within minutes. Long minute. We have no idea of a motive, he said. Really? Let's see. Okay, not a lot in here other than the title. All right, but believe me, they're giving you just the information that would lead you to the conclusion of what they want you to believe, that he was racially motivated. Okay, now this one had a lot in it, and I'm already getting a little tired. No, the next one did. So here's one of the victims. Okay, 13-year-old Kayla Salazar. I looked her up on Facebook. There are a lot of Kayla Salazars, but none that look like her. Thought that's a curiosity. Now, that's one thing that I tend to do, is that I will instantly pull up the victims' names. I'll go look at their profile. A lot of times, strangely enough, and even very quickly after the shooting, they don't have a profile. That's weird. Maybe she does. Maybe I didn't see it, you know. But it's weird. Or you'll find they have like one friend. Or you'll find that the profile has like, you know, maybe the posts are hidden, but then you'll see a few that are public, but there's only a couple, and they just started recently. It's happened. All right. That's strange. So I guess I should do the obligatory statement that if this girl really died, how tragic and how sad, and may God have mercy on her soul. I hope she's saved, and being a child, odds are high she is. How unfortunate, and may God comfort those families. But then again, maybe she isn't a real person, and you may think that's crazy, but I'm not talking out of my butt. This stuff happens. Paige had already received more than 2,500 in donations. Now, one of the reasons I had this up is because I was looking up GoFundMe. So that's another thing that I do. Whenever there's a mass shooting, start looking at GoFundMes. When were the pages created? Many times they were created way before the event happened. Now, I didn't really get too far into that, but I'll pull this up right now. So let's look here. This is GoFundMe. Again, the link in the search is in the description. Here's the little boy that was sadly, allegedly killed. And we're getting donations left and right, even a few minutes ago. Let me refresh it and see when the latest donation is. Let's see these numbers change. Let's see them go up. Yeah, let's get them a lot of money. Let's see where they are now. 56,000, 40. Now we're at 57,000, 46,000. You know, they have these goals that usually get way exceeded. She's gotten, you know, almost 40,000. The little boy, naturally, has gotten probably the most attention. And the poor black guy over here, Trevor Irby, you know, I guess he's not worth as much. He's only gotten 9,000. And that's sad. But one thing I noticed, well, I'll move on. Hang on a minute. So they've got a general fund, I think, here. They're almost 40,000 raised of 100 for, you know, who are the people that created the GoFundMes? Now, GoFundMe claims to have, you know, they've got to have the GoFundMe guarantee. I don't know, are there ways around that? I've never created a GoFundMe page. So I don't really know. But, and I don't know if this, if this one, it seems like it's involved somehow with the shooting, but I don't know. I guess they all are, because here's the last one. So you've got, like, how much money is trying to be raised here? 100, 35,000, 140,000 now. Let's go up here. 145, what did I say? 145,000. 140,000. So it's 190,000. 240,000. $265,000 is trying to be raised. So they're trying to raise around $250,000 thus far, and they're getting close to their goal. Pretty close. Only this one's far off. The rest of, well, no, this one's far off too. They're getting there. You know, they're getting there. Who's getting this money? Who's monitoring this? Who's tracking the integrity? This wouldn't be the first time GoFundMe's have been fraudulent. Well, one thing to consider in this is, like, when you say, well, who would do this kind of thing? And, there are people who have motivations to commit a false flag like this. How do they fund it? Well, you're looking at one avenue. Could you stage some kind of event with $250,000? Don't even really need much props. You just need to script things. You need to organize things. You need to generate profiles. You need to create fictitious victims. I don't know if these are fictitious victims, okay? Like I said, right now, my working operations, they really died. It's very sad. But was the guy that shot them acting independently? So let's talk about this gentleman, the victim, Trevor Irby. Okay. So one thing I noticed, curious again, the victims all being, this just fits the narrative really well because they're children. So again, perfecting these kind of shootings, if it is indeed staged, you have children. Well, that stops people. That's a thought stopper right there. Goes right to people's heart, and you can't question it. How dare you? Look what they did to Alex Jones and he backpedaled and said he never said this and that about Sandy Hook, because that's where a lot of children were allegedly killed, and you are made a pariah if you even question it. So that's in America's psyche because he made national news with that. They made a big stink about it with Megyn Kelly. What was that all about? Well, I maintain that Alex Jones is not who you think he is. He's either been compromised or he's a shill or sellout all from the beginning. He's an entertainer. So what was that all about? These Satan thinks in long-range plans. So I talked about the two children. Now let's talk about this guy. He's from New York. He's a biologist. So he's an educated black guy. And look at his white girlfriend. Now most people, at least outwardly or vocally, aren't against misogyny like they used to be. But this crosses over, doesn't it? Now he's also a lighter skinned black guy. So there's a crossover here. What does this do? It makes him a more relatable victim, garner more sympathy, also more impervious to scrutiny. You don't criticize the victims. That's one of the things in Sandy Hook or in Parkland. Victims received a lot of flack in certain cases. And boy, you can get excoriated and for even raising a question, which ain't right. Okay. Yeah, I kind of scrolled through this a bit. So again, here's the guy. Looks like a really nice guy. He actually allegedly was starting like fundraisers for disabled adults or something. Yeah. He shared a petition. Well, I guess I don't know how much he was involved with it. What's it take to share a petition? I don't know. He shared a petition advocating job opportunities for adults with developmental disabilities. Okay, he shared a Facebook post. All right, I thought he actually started some kind of a deal for that. So it's not quite as enveloped, quite as in depth as that. But yeah, he seemed to care, right? Good guy. Good guy. Achieving things. Got a relationship with a beautiful white woman. He's a very handsome, you could say a beautiful black man, beautiful white woman. Very Pittsburgh Steelers fan. you know, he's a victim people can latch onto. Fortunately, they're not really kicking on his GoFundMe too much. But anyway, there's that. Okay, so, you know, one thing again, I look at GoFundMes, you know, who's behind them. People just giving money, maybe, I don't know what, to ease their conscience, to feel a part of, I don't know. How do you know they didn't have amazing insurance? We don't know. How do you know what are the funds going to? 57,000 raised to 25. How much is a funeral going to be for a 6-year-old boy? You know, why? Who arbitrated this number? We need 25 grand. Well, 75 really, because there's 2 for this child. Excuse me. There's 50,000 for her. Well, do we get monetarily compensated now if we become a victim? The family, it's like, well, if your family member gets shot, you're going to be able to buy a new car. Maybe ease your grief. I don't know. I don't know what that's about. What about the victims? Like, here's one, 5,000 for the victims. Well, they're the ones that are going to have the medical bills. Okay, this one is asking 100,000 for medical bills. People aren't really chipping in. They're really chipping in because, again, people have emotional reactions to the victims. They're dead. They're dead, and they're going to have, let's say, $15,000 in funerals expenses, but they're all asking for a lot more. Why? Is it too bad? Is it too offensive to you to think about this and ask this question? Am I heartless? No, I'm not heartless. You're an idiot for even, being afraid to have intellectual freedom. Okay. All right. I'm getting tired. Not sure if I'm going to go any further with this. It's been probably an hour and a half already. And, wow, almost 2 hours. Jeez. Let's see here. I want to see something here. The GoFundMe pages are rolling out and being promoted in different articles. Let's see. Please donate. Janine Godinez on Facebook. She's my friend's daughter and unfortunately lost her life in a senseless act. Please keep her family in your prayers. Oh, well, there's arguably somebody may have to take some time off of work and things like that. But no amount of money will help the pain this has caused, one person wrote, but I hope it gives this poor angel a proper resting place. Well, we all hope 100,000 people give $1. That way they can all contribute and feel they've helped give that angel a proper resting place. And the family, buy a new house. Go on a cruise. How about that? All right, I thought there was... Okay, no, that's the wrong article. This one. Okay, I'm a lot closer to the end than I thought. Now, there's a couple data points in here that are about the perpetrator that are of interest. Okay. All right. He bought the gun, apparently. They call it an AK-47 style rifle. All right, here we go. Santino William Ligon is his name. He posted a caption, "The might is right." We talked about that yesterday, which claims race determines behavior. It appeared at the photo of Smokey the Bear in front of a fire danger sign, also complained about overcrowding towns and paving open space to make room for hordes of Latinos and Silicon Valley whites. Okay, his last Instagram post, he sent a photo from the Garlic Festival, and minutes later he shot into the crowd. Now I thought he was in the woods, the creek. Okay, was he inside and took a photo, then later just fired it off when he went outside and then came back around after he redressed in camo and a hat and bulletproof vest and had already stashed his weapon out there in the woods? Where did he come from? Right? This is important. See, details like this ought to give us pause. But if we're not thinking critically, they'll go right by us. He sent a photo from the Gilroy Garlic Festival. Did he take a photo through the fence? Where is this photo? Let's see the photo. Why isn't this hyperlinked? Okay, maybe we need to go to his Instagram. I haven't done that. He sent a photo from the Gilroy Garlic Festival. So was he inside? Can we find his Instagram post? I think it's been taken down already. But at any rate, I wish I had that right now. The Gilroy Garlic Festival, he had a photograph from the festival. So he sounds like he was inside. Or he decided to take a picture through the fence. What risk of being a camo guy taking picture through the fence, whether he had his gun on him or not, slung over his shoulder, it might draw some attention. That was stupid, right? Or did he take it inside and then before he, cut the wires and went in or scaled the fence, jumped over, as another witness said, strangely, conflictingly, he decided to send a photo. So, all right. Now remember, he's coming in from the creek side, from the woods. Where was he parked? Where was his car? Why didn't anybody see him carrying a gun? Was it stashed? Why aren't they asking these questions? Minutes later, he shot into the crowd with an AK-47 style weapon. So somewhere else, somebody called it an AK-47, but we heard it described as an M4. And they're not calling it an AK-47, but an AK-47 style. Important, because we do need to know what kind of gun it is. Why? I just explained it all yesterday. So now you can see that was important. Time spent going and looking at an M4, because generally civilians don't have them. Come get waste on overpriced. Let's see. Interesting word here. Police patrolling the event responded within a minute and killed Ligon. That's a long minute, by the way. It sounds like it's fast, but 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. How many shots can you get off in 5 seconds? A lot. They responded and killed Ligon as he turned the weapon on them. Interesting. Were they hiding behind things and telling him to freeze and stop, and they didn't fire on him till was he still shooting? Those are questions that I'd like to know. Were they allowing him to get some carnage in? Well, that's insane. That's absurd. Why would they do that? They're police officers. Really? How do we know who they are? I'm going to show you something. Oh, I may have lost it already. No, I didn't lose it. I saved it. I saved it. I'll show you something, boys and girls, all my brothers and all my friends. Active shooter incident, Garlic Festival in Gilroy, California. California. KGO coverage, ABC News. Now, this looks like a badge hat or a agency hat. I don't know what his shirt says. But this guy being interviewed may or may not be law enforcement, but he's an interviewee. Some reason he has information, or there's a reason they're interviewing him. These little things are circled because that is a set compass. There's a set. This looks like a what does this all mean? There's a set and compass in here. It's Masonic. And that's another thing. Very often I'll find in these interviews people wearing Masonic symbols. Here's another one. This guy, I don't know who he is. Doesn't look like a police officer, but he's being talked to. He's got a triangle. I don't know exactly what the ring is. There's a question mark here. What's that mean? Maybe nothing. But it's there. He's one that's being interviewed. Now, sometimes you have to be very careful, because if they're doing a live interview on someone, they could say things they don't want you to, they really wouldn't want you to say. Can you imagine if I'm at one of these things and I'm hanging around afterward and somebody sticks a microphone in my face and say, "Can you tell us what happened?" And I start going down my trains of thought? You think that's going to make the air? No, they know who they're talking to generally. Now, this harkens back to 9/11 when they're interviewing some people on the street who, what is it? I didn't think of this before making the video. A guy is talking about, he's making his own commentary about the plane hitting, the guy, oh man. My point is this. The guy was basically using mind control in his responses, as almost like he was a random guy in the street, but it was clear that he wasn't. And he was saying things like, because obviously this, that, and the other wouldn't happen. like he was telling people how to think in their state of shock. And it turns out the guy who he was, I don't know if he was himself a reporter, something odd. It was just odd. It was just very clear that this guy's interview was a fraud. So it's just something. This may be a stretch here. I don't know who this guy is. Could just be Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, a little triangle. I don't know. You can't see it that well. But who knows? Who knows? Just curious stuff. Okay. So he legally purchased a semi-automatic assault rifle in Nevada. Now this is interesting. This is one of the things I want to say. Data stuff about the perpetrator. His last address is listed. Okay, well the question's not asked. How long did he live there? When was he last there? How long's he been back in Gilroy? Okay, so he went to Nevada because to buy that he couldn't get in California. You have to be over 21 to get something like that. In Nevada, the age limit's 18. It says Ligon grew up less than a mile from the park where the city known as the garlic capital of the world has held its 3-day festival for 40 years, attracting more than 100,000 people with music, food, booths, and cooking classes. That sounds like a really good time, I'll tell you what. Authorities were looking for clues on social media, what caused the son of a prominent local family. Now, it's interesting they call him a prominent local family. His brother was, locally famous, maybe a young boxer. That does not make you a prominent family. And his father was a competitive runner and a coach. That does not make you a prominent family either. But his grandfather had been a supervisor in Santa Clara County. We discovered yesterday his grandfather also graduated from West Point, served in the military, I believe, something like that. So I want to know what his relationship with his grandfather was. When did he last spend time with his grandfather? I think the grandfather's gone now, passed away. Can't remember. Was it 2016? I don't remember. But what kind of influence did he have? What was their relationship? What was this guy's ties back into West Point in the military? I mean, that's some pedigree. West Point. Some pedigree and some connections. Don't underestimate that. It's curious. It's a curiosity. It's a data point. You gotta crank this in. Police said they don't know if people were targeted. At this point, it appears he shot indiscriminately, leaving it wide open, by the way, for you to the mystery motive, right? Maybe he did shoot indiscriminately, but he made sure he killed 2 Hispanic children and 1 black guy. And he had these racial books that he promoted. And then his racial remarks about, sarcastic remarks about paving the way for mestizos and stuff. Police searched, but he also said white Silicon Valley people. Ligon's vehicle was searched in the 2-story Ligon family home, leaving with paper bags. Authorities also searched an apartment. Now this is important. Searched an apartment they believe Ligon used this month in remote northern Nevada. Officials, of course, didn't say what they found. Well, this is huge, really. So this young guy, 19 years old, was keeping an apartment in remote northern Nevada, but he had an address. Okay, it didn't say like Las Vegas or something. I think the gun store was in Las Vegas. I'm not sure, but he Fallon, Nevada. All right, let's look up where Fallon, Nevada is. It's getting late. I got to get on with my day. It's not how I plan to spend it, but here I go. Well, again, these are important. Fallon, Nevada is where? Let's see the relationship. Is it northern? It's in where? Nevada. It's not in northern Nevada. So we had an apartment in northern Nevada, which would reasonably be somewhere up here. But he, in this remote town, or Fallon, Nevada, he bought a gun. That might be worth exploring to somebody who has the funds and time and really wants to really research and do investigative journalism on this story. What I'm doing is not really investigative journalism yet. It's sort of beginnings. Okay, but think about that. He had an apartment in remote northern Nevada. Well, what did he do for a living? How did he support that? This is a huge question. Was somebody training him up there to shoot? Now that seems plausible. If you're in remote Nevada, you can do a lot of target practice, nobody knowing. Do a lot of training, nobody knowing about it. And who was supporting him keep an apartment up there for possibly a year? Did you ever think about that? Are they asking these questions? No. It's just, they're just stream of consciousness guiding you through this with the narratives they want, because you're a flower floating on the breeze, man. Any way the wind blows. As Freddie Mercury and Queen sings. And California police had training how to respond to an active shooter. So it sounds like statewide, California police get trained on how to respond to active shooters. So they gave him a minute. Again, remember, heavy presence, motorcycles, horseback, on foot, that lady said. Nevertheless, around where the band was playing, there wasn't a single officer who could manage to get his pistol out of his holster, and a guy walking around with a rifle and camo shooting into the crowd and killing people. People are running like a herd of scared cattle being chased by a lion, apparently, we're told. We don't get to see a lot of that. But at least a herd of cattle, of wildebeest or antelope, they have the sense to run away from the lions. We saw a lot of people running towards the shooter, or walking, looking at their phone. Some people walking away, some people running. Not a lot of screaming. You know, bizarre. Puzzling evidence. A whole minute is a long minute. You take a minute. Do you take 1 minute and maybe just go pop, pop like a shot and see how many shots you can get off in 15 seconds? Well, they prepared for the worst. They never expected to use those skills in Gilroy. Well, that's your first mistake. If you prepare for stuff like this, you need to expect it could happen to you. That's just stupid. Let's see. But Ligon didn't go through the front entrance. This is the AP writing. He cut through a fence bordering a parking lot next to a creek. That's the police chief saying that. Some witnesses report a second suspect. Again, we're going to hear less and less about this, likely. They did arrest a guy who was claimed involvement in line, but they determined he was just trying to get attention. Kind of weird. You have people like that. Let's see. Now, this is something. The father, Alberto Romero, of a 6-year-old child, told the San Francisco Bay Area news station after the shooting, "My son had his whole life to live and he was only 6. Are you giving interviews when your 6-year-old boy has just been gunned down? Was he near that when it happened? Did he hold the dead boy in his arms? I don't know. But I went to look to find the video of this. I didn't really find it. There was the shooting in, maybe it was the Thousand Oaks shooting. A guy was crying about his son being killed, and there was no tears. And boy, he sure loved the camera. Right after his son died, it was just weird. That stunk to high heaven, by the way. Let's see. We don't have any word on who the wounded were yet. None. But some even had to have surgery and some in critical condition. Hold on. Okay, right here. Troy Towner said his sister, Wendy Towner, was at the festival for her business. All right, so she's an intelligent woman, most likely. She's got her own business. The Honey Ladies, that's the name of it. I don't know what they do. When she saw a man with a gun climb over the fence, she yelled at him, "No, you can't do that." Gunman shot her in the leg and her husband 3 times. Now, you think this through. Do you think if you got shot in the leg by a guy, you'd know whether he cut through the fence or climbed over the fence? Was there a second gunman? Right? Climbed over the fence. She yelled at him, "No, you can't do that." Now that seems absurd. I would say that it's like, everybody look, he's got a gun. There's a gun. There's a man with a gun. Police, police, policia, policia. You know, that's what you'd yell. She yelled at him, "No, you can't do that." I guess I overestimated her. She's not that smart. Wendy Towner telling gunmen, "You know you can't do that." You go, girl. Oh, where'd that get you? Got shot in the leg. Your husband got shot 3 times. That's absurd. This is, again, absurd theater. She yelled at him, "No, you can't do that." Somebody else yelled at him, "Why are you doing this?" I'm surprised you didn't say, "Because Wendy Towner told me I couldn't do it." I'm being a little funny here. Got to have a sense of humor. That's just absurd. It's absurd. Oh, this gets even weirder. I didn't read this. Okay, so the gunman shot her in the leg and her husband 3 times. Legan then approached the couple as they lay motionless on the ground and asked if they were all right. They didn't move, fearing he would finish them off, Towner wrote. So they were able to lay perfectly still, her after being shot in the leg, him after being shot 3 times. She played dead, only being shot in the leg. This is absurd. Who writes this stuff? I don't think reality did. This is unraveling right before your very eyes. They can't, God confounds the wicked. They can't think straight and write straight. Candice Marquez, who works for Wendy Towner, and her husband Francisco, told the Associated Press that she had stepped away to go to the bathroom and saw the gunman heading to their tent. She said her 10-year-old niece helped the toddler to safety. She was brave, Marquez said. Jan Dixon, a neighbor of the Legan family across the street, described them as a nice, normal family. She said, now this is important, she said Santino Legan had not lived there for at least a year. Well, one would logically presume the odds seem high he was in a remote northern Nevada in an apartment he kept. Or someone kept. What was he doing in remote northern Nevada? Are we going to really hear the details and find this out? Not if he was up there training to be an asset. How do they find these people? Maybe they find them through video games. They share. People play each other all around the world, play through the internet. Maybe there's certain, there are people that are recruiting from these games, judging on their language, their ability, their apparent intelligence, their apparent attitudes, and then they seduce them, and then they cultivate them, then they groom them, right? Have you thought about that? Is your boy in his room with his Xbox playing shoot-'em-up games that are extremely realistic with strangers you don't know who they are, how old they are, or where they are, what their motivations are for interacting with your child? I don't know what's going on here. I don't know. I'm just trying to sort through there's clearly some bullshit going on, right? Like I said, occasionally I'll season my language with this because you gotta just sometimes just look at it and go, that's a load of shit. There's a bunch of shit in here. All right, close that one. Close that one. All right. What we can do about these ads. Let's see here. Gunman posted online minutes before. Can I move this? Can I get rid of it? We're stuck with it. Let's move this up. This is from 10 News. Gunman posted online minutes before killing 3 at California Festival. Authorities are looking for clues on social media to what caused him to do it. Let's see. He urged Instagram followers to read a 19th century book popular with white supremacists. Oh yeah, this is what I want to point out on this one. On extremist websites. He promoted a 19th century book that's popular with white supremacists on extremist websites. Okay, I'll take your word for it, I guess. I don't know. I'd never heard of that book. Might is right before, or the author. But his motives for killing 2 children and another young man were still a mystery. Although the victims, these two were Hispanic and this was a black guy. What are you really trying to say? You know, sometimes they're going to lead you to what they want you to conclude. It's a technique. It's a mind control technique. You make the conclusion. They don't out and out call him a racist. They just give you it's a do-it-yourself kit. Okay? Then they go on to explain about the book and race and hordes of Latinos. Okay. Let's see. Now this come get wasted on overpriced items and his reference to the Silicon Valley whites. You know, he may become a little bit of a cult hero to a certain segment of these, millennial socialists who are, he struck out against the rich, in a sense. Well, no, he actually only killed a 13-year-old girl and a 6-year-old boy and a very young man who had his whole life in front of him. He was an accomplished young man. But, again, given the benefit of the doubt, real victims. Postings are among the first details that emerged about Ligon since authorities say he appeared to fire at random, sending people running. So there's a little bit of, he appeared to fire at random, but yet these he drilled down on pretty good. Well, not only did he fire at random, he approached one couple, and after he shot him, "Are you all right?" It just doesn't make sense. That's another thing to watch for. What I watch for is when the stories just kind of don't make really sense. It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't mean it didn't happen that way, but really, something's off. God confounds the wicked. Tell you what. Police patrolling the event responded within a minute and killed Ligon. He turned the weapon on them. Okay, some of this is repeated language. Maybe it's a lot repeated language is what I'm seeing here. Okay, he grew up less than a mile from the park, and he held its 3-day festival for 4 decades. Okay, we've already seen this. This seems to be a repeat of that article, but under a different news site. He cut through the fence. That's what they're saying. This article is about identical. Yeah, this is identical to the one I just closed, just different page. Okay, well that wraps it up, ladies and germs. I hope you got through this. So it turned into a long video again, but we just need to take a stress pill and think things over, right? Have faith. The Lord is your shepherd, and you shall not want. And he makes you lie down in green pastures. He leads us beside the still waters. And though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we should fear no evil, for he is with us, in his rod of correction, in his staff of guidance. Comfort us. And his goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our lives. Seek the Lord while he may be found. All right, that's the Sludge Report for July 30th, 2019 AD. And thanks for coming out. You're welcome to share this far and wide. I'm not afraid. I don't care. I don't care about saying the things I say offending someone. I don't. You should neither. All right.